Minnesota is on track to exceed the national standards when it comes to reducing carbon emissions and increasing renewable energy production. Joining me right now is the chair of the Senate Environment and Energy Committee, John Marty, to talk a little bit about what this message means to Minnesotans. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Let's begin with that question, Senator. What do you think it means that Minnesota is leading the pack?
It's a good news for our jobs and businesses. It's good news for the environment. We have a long way to go. We're just beginning the step forward in a new energy economy. And I think we can learn from other countries. Germany is moving forward aggressively. They've created more jobs than anybody else on the planet in this area.
Do you think any of this would have even happened without legislative direction and intervention?
Energy change, there are plenty of businesses. You talk to Bloomberg, financial folks, they'll say investments in renewable energy is strong right now. People are doing it because they see a good future there. It happens a lot faster, a lot stronger, a lot better if we put some state effort to make this happen. That's why we're trying to do it. We like Minnesota solar companies, Minnesota wind companies, Minnesota conservation businesses. We'd like to see them grow so Minnesota gets the jobs rather than import them from other states.
And Senator, we did talk to you about that near the end of session, a little bit about the money that's being allocated to solar. So now comes the implementation part of that. Where does the commission stand and the committee stand on trying to get more solar manufacturing jobs, people into solar?
Just this week, I actually spoke to Minnesota Solar Energy Association, which is businesses. There were 100 people there. They were small electrical businesses, small solar businesses, and so on. They're talking about how many businesses they've had express interest in moving manufacturing plants into Minnesota because of what we've done. We'll wait and see. I don't want to predict that, oh, we've got all these jobs because this bill passed, but there's real interest. They're the ones who implement what we've done. We set out some policies that we hope will inspire the industry to grow, help them grow, and we think it's going to happen.
Nationally speaking, President Obama wants to also increase natural gas production while moving away from coal. By some, this is being dubbed a war on coal. Would you say that it's a war, and is that a fair assessment?
Well, I think the thing we have to look at in politics, we often look at 2 years or 4 years. The next election is long-term thinking. I think we ought to be thinking long-term thinking is my great-grandkids or their great-grandkids, because this is their planet, this is their state too. We don't know who they are yet, but we got to be thinking about that. And if coal emissions are going to destroy the climate that they have to live in, maybe it's time to be declaring war on something that's going to kill off our great-grandkids.
But the argument is that technologies can reduce those carbon emissions, so coal could still be viable.
They can reduce some of it. They're not going to. The bottom line is coal is probably one of the worst factors. Oil, even natural gas is not a step forward. What we basically have as a problem is that for 650 million years, energy storage has been compressed into what becomes fossil fuels. That's why they're called fossil fuels. And that's stored energy from the sun and plant life and animal life that decays and eventually works down to this over millennia and over eons. And we're trying to, as human race is in 300-400 years of time, trying to burn up hundreds of millions of years worth of energy storage, and that's just superheating up the climate. So we have to change that. And we don't have a lot of time in terms of human history. We don't have a lot of time to change it for the sake of our great-grandkids.
And Senator, you've been very vocal about wanting to make Minnesota the first state in the nation to be 100% fossil fuel free. How viable of a goal is that given this political climate, the environmental climate? Do you think it's possible?
It's not going to happen next year. It's not going to happen this decade. Whether it happens in 20 years or 60 years, it's going to happen somewhere in that range, I think. And we don't know the technologies yet. Technologies, every week you hear new technologies developing and more efficient ways of doing things. And bottom line is, it's time for us to start taking a look at the long term. Not just the next 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 years, but the next 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 generations. We ought to be looking at that, and I think that's our obligation to the future. And I think we're doing that. That's what I'm excited about. We're bringing together all the stakeholders, not just the environmental advocates, but the utilities, the businesses and labor, and everybody. Bring them together and start figuring out how we make this transition, which we have to do.
And what are you hearing from business owners, particularly utilities, who some are phasing out coal, some are not? Are they ready?
I think that they're ready with some push and some encouragement. What I've been doing when I meet and talk with the utilities, which I do regularly as chair of the committee, when I talk with them, I tell them, we're going to have to push you more than you feel comfortable. These are very cautious, conservative businesses, appropriately so. And we're going to push them more than they feel comfortable. But we also understand they're the ones who deliver the power. And we want to make sure that they can be very profitable and very successful delivering clean power to people.
We spoke with Senator Dave Brown, the lead Republican on your committee, and he stated essentially he thinks government needs to take a step back on this issue and just let the standards that are currently in place be in place for a while and see how that works. You just mentioned a little bit of a legislative push and encouragement. Where's the balance? Is there one? The
balance is that we've got, in terms of the main greenhouse gas that's heating up the climate, we've got 400 parts per million right now. That's the highest in 2.6 million years. It's growing by about 2 points a year. We can't continue that trend. We have to reverse that trend in saying, well, we're not in any hurry. The way I would phrase it, and Senator Brown obviously would disagree, but we'll see how this plays out in the next couple of decades, and that is no matter how bold we are now, and I don't think we're being as bold as we need to be, no matter how bold we are now, I think 20 years from now, people are going to look back and ask why we were so timid. And Senator Brown may not see it yet, but we had testimony this year, beginning of the session, from the Insurance Federation, not a radical group, the insurance businesses in Minnesota, talking how their premiums for homeowners have more than doubled in a decade because of more severe weather patterns, more tornadoes, more high windstorms, more flooding, more the things that are associated with higher global temperatures. Not heat waves only, but heat and drought and flooding and all those severe storms. That's causing homeowner premiums to double in a decade. They're not bragging about it. They're just alerting us. And he may not see that, but I think the public is beginning to catch on.
So what's next for you next session? It's a policy year.
Right now, I'd say what we're focusing on right now is getting the Energy Commission. That's 20 legislators, bipartisan group. Get them to start bringing together everyone, all the stakeholders. So we don't have the fights at the Capitol here, but so we bring people together, educate each other, work with each other, figure out how Minnesota can create an economy that's clean energy and that's going to do huge things for numbers of jobs in our businesses. That's what we ought to be doing for this state. It's good for the environment and it's great for the economy.
All right, Senator John Marty, as always, thank you for coming in and talking with us. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure.